Hello and welcome back to Sponsored Content. This is Spawn Storytime episode number 2. Today we'll be covering Spawn issue number 2. There have been some adjustments made to audio and screen capture, so hopefully that will be an improvement over the last episode. This is still an amateur production. Please do not expect any level of high production value here. That's not what you're here for anyway. We're here to talk about Spawn, and that's it. So let's continue on by checking out this sweet-ass cover, issue number 2. Again, this issue was released in 1992, July 1st, and this is the second part in the Questions story arc. In this issue, we'll get our first appearance of the Violator in both human clown form and true form. Before we jump into issue number 2, I think it's important to do a quick recap of the first issue from the previous episode. In issue number 1, basically Spawn lands on Earth and he can't remember shit. He whoops some ass, he saves a lady, then he finds out he's a baked potato in a costume. There's some murderous shit going down among the mob. There may or may not be a mob war brewing. There may also be a government conspiracy involving some level of superheroes. We're not really sure. And also the devil. So, pretty exciting first issue. Alright, we're going to jump right into issue number 2. Issue number 2, we have our first appearance of the Violator. And here is the Violator in his human clown form, or I like to refer to him as Danny DeVito. But here we get our first image of the Violator. And he's a pretty grotesque, small human being. Well, small in height, not in circumference. But he's going on describing to his audience of one junkyard / alleyway cat all the disgusting ways that he's going to disembowel and chop up and essentially kick Spawn's ass when he sees Spawn later this evening. He continues on in more graphic detail of how he is going to fight Spawn. He makes a mention of how bravado goes a long way. Sort of breaks the fourth wall, makes a cute little reference there to how well the usage of bravado works in comics. And so if you're into that, that's a pretty funny mention there. So he continues on to say that once he gets to the point of basically, bringing Spawn to his complete demise and just total annihilation and death, he's going to stop. Because he's not technically allowed to kill Spawn, and we don't know why that is yet. But he continues on and on about what he's going to do, and essentially just ends the page with talking about his love for himself and how much he would not want to be Spawn when he encounters him later this evening. On our next page, we have Spawn, beautiful atop the church again, just looking magnificent. If you remember from the last episode, he can recall now that he does have a wife. He wants to find her. It's been 5 years since he died. I don't know if that was explicitly clear in the last episode, but it's been 5 years since his death. So Spawn was brought back to the Earth 5 years after he died, although hardly any time passed for him during this experience of returning. 5 years passed for everyone else. So he's still on a mission to find his wife. Knows very little. He's starting to recollect a little bit more of details surrounding his deal with the devil, which obviously included the possession of his soul. So he is trying to find his wife. He can't even remember her name, which sucks because, if it's your wife, you'd really like to know who you're looking for, at least a name or a location. But he's kind of being tortured by Malebolgia, the devil he made a deal with. He's only giving him bits and pieces of his memories, just kind of messing with Spawn and dragging out his suffering. So Spawn's been chilling in a dumpster for like 2 days. He doesn't really, know what to do yet, so he's just kind of laying low. He's pissed because he thinks, even if I could find my wife, she probably wants nothing to do with me anyway, because I'm a freak, and, that's just the tip of the iceberg, basically. So now, Spawn is back to sort of being really intimate with this cross. He's starting to feel drawn to this church, and he's not really sure why, but we can see, he's starting to get pretty intimate with it in the next panel here. He's getting really comfortable in his costume, whereas before he was not really sure what was going on, but now he's kind of feeling more at home. And then he sees the Violator down on the rooftop, kind of being swirly, and he notices him being odd, and it piques his interest, but then the Violator disappears. So now we're at the Dawncourt building, which is kind of like a organized crime haven. It's a big ass tall building, super high tech, lots of security measures, quote, impenetrable. So we'll see here soon that it is not. This gentleman is trying to figure out what's going on in his boss's office. There's a lot of commotion down there. And then we see this arm just come blasting through the door. I don't know why. It seems like there should be a sound effect there, but I guess I hear one in my mind. But this dude basically gets his heart ripped out, which we already know has been a thing. So we assume this guy is a mobster or involved with organized crime based on what we know about hearts being ripped out. And now we have our just nasty, gruesome, visceral, like Violator money shot in his true form. So, you know, Danny DeVito on one side and then this thing on the other. Honestly, I don't even know which one's better. But anyway, this is our first whole ass picture of a true Violator, and he's looking pretty nasty, pretty menacing. All right, so next up we have a newscast. Standard fare here. Gentleman at the top, he's still like, I don't understand why the police care about the situation. Everybody who's dying deserves to die, so what's the big deal? The gentleman in the middle, he makes another reference to the Youngbloods. At this point, we've kind of gathered there's like a group of superheroes in the Spawn universe, as details kind of come to the forefront regarding them. But this gentleman kind of continues on to talk about he makes a mention of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here, which is kind of neat, and then he goes on to talk about a dragon in Chicago, which is a mention of the Savage Dragon series. So at the bottom, we have our regular ass news, and it is focusing mostly on a continuation of these brutal murders that are affecting the mob and like what's going on there, and then also how awesome Al Simmons' widow Wanda Blake is at being humanitarian, leading all these sort of humanitarian efforts, and just generally being an awesome, beautiful person. All right, so in our next shot, we have the sweetest image so far of Spawn and that classic sort of cape look. The illustration there atop the church, it just looks amazing. So he's basically just wanting to see his wife. That's kind of the theme for a while. But he's still not really sure who he is, what he is. He knows he's pissed because he looks like a big potato and he wants to see his wife. But when he shows up looking like this, she probably won't want anything to do with him, which is pretty obvious. So here Spawn's thinking maybe if he could use his powers to kind of transform back into his old self, that'd be the best way to try to approach his wife, and reconnect. And he tries to do this, and we see like, we can kind of make a correlation here with the timer or the hourglass in terms of like how much power Spawn has, because he does have a limited amount of power. His power is not unlimited in its usage, but like, he can do really big ass things, but he just can't do them forever. So Spawn thinks, hey, I got all this power, maybe I can use it somehow to transform myself back into the old me. So he tries to do that, and we can see in the bottom panel, he turns into this gentleman here, which I don't think is what he was expecting. And now he's kind of pissed off because turns out Al Simmons, he was a black man. I don't know if that was gathered through any subtext, but here it is confirmed that Lieutenant Colonel Al Simmons was in fact a black man. So you can imagine his dismay when he tries to morph into his old self and he ends up turning into Patrick Swayze from Point Break. So next we have Sam and Twitch, and they're going on. Sam's basically reading the newspaper, and he's lamenting the fact that there's all these terrible things that are at the forefront of the news, and he's overworked, that the chief's got him working like 5-6 reports on cases. Like obviously these mobsters keep getting brutalized and having their hearts ripped out or thrown out of buildings, so their caseload's pretty busy. All right, on the next page we have more heart-ripping courtesy of the Violator. Violator says, give me your heart and then I'll let your soul get tortured forever. So basically, as the Violator is ripping out all these hearts and he's killing all these mobsters, their souls go into hell, and that's kind of benefiting the cause of Malebolgia. So Spawn turns into Patrick Swayze, and he's like super pissed now because one, he is not white, and that's frustrating because he's trying to go see his wife, and two, he's realizing that even though he has all this power, things may not be working out the way he wants, and he's challenging Malebolgia at this point. He's kind of taunting him. He's like, you've already effed me up, like why don't you just see if you can come at me again? And then just about that time, he has another blackout flashback. And now we can see the person whom he hates, Jason Wynn. We get a lot of details about Jason Wynn here. One, he's a dickhead. Two, he was Spawn's boss. He was Spawn's boss. He was in the CIA. He was basically the one that gave Spawn lots of his orders when he was a mercenary. But at first they were homies, and they were almost brothers, and they worked together really well until, Jason Wynn started to kind of go to the dark side, and he enjoyed being evil so much that he just turned into pure evil, and him and Spawn started to butt heads because Spawn, he just felt like he was a good soldier. So, he would take the orders, maybe he killed some people, not a big deal because he's just doing what he's told. But now his boss is kind of turning into like a huge evil asshole, and Spawn's not really into that. So they start to clash. On this page, Spawn basically comes to from his sort of blackout there atop the church, of course, where he likes to hang out, and he falls all the way down. We can see a lot of his power is used up at this point because he just freaking broke his neck. And here we continue on with the Violator. He's just ripping hearts. I don't even know how to describe it, honestly. He says it's getting boring. It's really getting boring for me to just continually show and describe images of the Violator fucking up people. But you get the idea. I mean, it's awesome. It looks really cool. But he's just kind of going around. And that's the idea, is like he's just becoming bored with going around on his sort of side mission, which is just kind of causing havoc and keeping an eye on Spawn, but also sending some, dirty souls down to hell. So now, here we get to Spawn coming to from falling off the church. And he meets the Violator in his human form for the first time. So the Violator's like, hey, what's going on? And Spawn's like, dude, kind of leave me alone. Like, what do you want? And Violator ends up putting Spawn's mask back on for him. And he's like, do you know what I am? And Violator's like, yeah, you're the Spawn. What's the big deal? And Spawn's like, what? And so that's like the first time we get his name mentioned directly to him. And on the next page here, we can get a depiction of scale from the Danny DeVito clown human form Violator to Spawn, who's obviously much taller. And in this scene, basically, the Violator is going on talking about, more ways that he's going to screw up Spawn, asking him if he's scared. Spawn's just like, dude, do you know where my wife is? Because that's really all I'm interested in right now. And he's like, nah, just kind of ignoring him. Our next panel here, Violator realizes that he's so disgusting, he's forgotten to zip his fly, so we take a brief pause from the interaction here so we can do that. And then he kind of starts to challenge Spawn, but Spawn doesn't really think that, this is a big deal at this point, because obviously, like, look at the dude. He doesn't seem like a big threat. Spawn's kind of already got an idea of what he's capable of, so he just doesn't have time for this. So he starts to walk away. And in our last page here, we see that the Violator has morphed into his true form, which Spawn really has not encountered at all to this point. And so the Violator is like, have a heart, which we know what that is about to mean. And of course, this is our cliffhanger. And in the next issue, we will see Spawn versus Violator in his true form, a continuation of the Question story arc. Again, thanks for stopping by. This was Spawn Storytime Episode 2.